Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Wisdom Distillery. I'm your host, Shaman John. In this episode, we interview Zach and Natalie A.R.T from Almost Real Things magazine. These two are both very talented creators in their own right and are very passionate about promoting the art of other people as well and creating more of an artistic community here in Austin, Texas. They're doing a lot of good work and throwing a lot of really cool events and showing a lot of love to the art scene here. So in this episode, we cover the evolution of Almost Real Things as a magazine and how they came together as partners. And we also cover the challenges of being an artist in today's economy and how to potentially circumnavigate some of those challenges by being entrepreneurial. Go figure. So check it out. Hey guys, welcome to this podcast. We are here tonight with Zach and Natalie from Almost Real Things. Almost Real Things is an arts magazine, specifically out of Austin at this point, but I'm sure they have bigger agenda somewhere down the line, right?
Perhaps.
Yeah, grow it to a little more global influence, global impact.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Global
So,
for sure.
How did you guys come together in partnership on this? And was the friendship, the connection first, or was the magazine first, or what? What's the order of things?
The friendship first, because we met when we were 15 in high school. So it's been a long time.
And how did you connect? Like, what brought you together?
Probably just
Our teacher was a dick.
yeah.
Okay.
So
Fair enough. So you
Zach
bonded
being
over
weird.
the pain of
Yeah.
a poor teacher.
Zach would make jokes and things, so people kind of knew. But then we happened to just have almost every class together sophomore year of high school. So just like, oh, I see you all the time,
Yeah.
so let's talk kind of thing.
Open up the doors of
Yeah.
communication.
Yeah.
bad decisions.
Yeah. You learn to regret those
Yes.
over time.
And now it's done.
Nearly 10 years later.
Yeah.
Wow.
Decided to
Almost
start
over
a magazine.
10 years now. But yeah, so we were both always creative, bonded over art, music, mutual love of just making things. So we both went to college separately, and I studied studio art and English, and he was studying graphic design, and always just kind of helping out each other with certain projects or giving feedback. And we had all these other ideas that we'd come up with, and we just wanted to share them in some way, but we didn't know quite how to get people to see them, or if they weren't like a full project, if it wasn't for like a gallery space, where could it go? And so we had talked about that, and the idea of a magazine came up. We had been to a print show when we were in Europe just traveling, and we met people and talked with people who were making like handmade zines and things like that. And it just looked like a very like freeing kind of, no rules to it.
Yeah.
So that's where it started. That was 2013, just like the idea of starting to do it. But not until we moved here, 2015, did we decide, okay, let's go for it. Let's actually make something and publish it and see where it goes.
Nice. And did you ever have a sense of like, this is a really big undertaking that we're about to embark on? And like, did you ever have a sense of like second guessing yourself in that journey? Or was it just like, I'm totally delusional about this and I'm just going to forge ahead as if it's all going to be exquisite and work out perfectly?
I feel like that's personally how I just assume everything is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just delusionally
Make it-
optimistic?
Make it way bigger deal than it actually is.
Oh, okay.
Treat it with utmost professionality.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes it gets me into trouble.
Yeah, I think Zach's way more optimistic than I am. I'm always the one to be like, wait, hold on. And so, honestly, when we started, though, I was thinking more in the realm of like a project. and not so much as a business.
An ongoing thing.
Yeah. Or just kind of like a fun, random thing. But then we realized, and the more we connected with people, or people really liked what we were doing, then I was like, oh, okay, it's a thing, and people want to see it, so we need to keep it going.
Yeah.
And figure out how to do that.
How to sustain it.
Yeah, exactly. And the whole business side of it was completely new, and not something that I had planned for, I guess, but I was thinking maybe a little bit smaller.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's still a good thing. Yeah.
What do you think what do each of you bring to the table that is unique to yourself that supports the whole, supports the greater goal? To think about that.
I don't know.
Well, you said
Is it perks? We're talking about perks, or
Like, what do you...
No,
whatever the opposite of a perk is.
No, like what strengths do you have versus what she has?
I feel like I'm a perfectionist.
Yeah.
So that's why
You would agree
I
with
coordinate
that?
a lot of the
yeah.
design part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Just figuring out.
Yeah, the look of it.
The aesthetics.
Yeah.
Yeah, the look which a lot of people respond to is like, that's Zach. That's his design eye, and the format of it, and people are always complimenting that, and that's just him. And he does take a long time doing it, but it's worth it because people really like it. But I'm way more impatient, so I can't do all of the little like
Nitpicky
the kerning and the leading and
detail.
the whatnot, and moving things over like pixel by pixel. So I like coordinating interviews, or I like just getting people to talk about what they're doing, or if they haven't thought about any creative ideas, just kind of put that in their mind. Yeah, that you can do these things, or like, hey, that's not a dumb idea, that's actually really cool. And then I do a lot more.
Sometimes there's a fine line.
Yeah.
people don't know
Between
whether what
clever
they're making.
and stupid.
Yeah, you just have to convince them that it is cool, and then
like it's worth
And then it
it.
becomes cool.
yeah, and then you share it with
create
people, and other people think it's
Yeah.
cool. And you're like, maybe I wasn't an idiot.
Yeah, well, yeah.
That's great.
That's the thing.
Or maybe you were.
Or maybe you
matter.
were, and maybe there are a bunch more of you.
Yeah.
That's the great part of it. Is like they can just join you on the idiot wagon, which clearly exists.
Yeah.
I mean, I can start a whole other tangent conversation.
Where's that kazoo?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, here it is. We'll get this. There we go. Every time we zing somebody, that'll be what we do.
Perfect.
So, what are the milestones? How long have you been in publication?
2 years.
2 years
this
now?
is the full second year, yeah.
What have been some milestones that you guys are proud of so far?
There's been a lot. Well, we think about the events we put on now. So now we're putting on release parties with every new issue. And we've really started to figure out how they're going to go. Before the very first one we had, when we were brand new to Austin, and also just new as a thing, we barely knew anyone. So I think of that event, and it was like under 100 people, like so small. It was so different. And now like the last event was at least like 700 people come through.
That's great.
But then also we're getting better at the planning. So seeing the events grow is really cool.
That's cool.
Because I'm always like, I don't know
Who
most
are
of
these people?
Yeah. So it's fun to bring
Somehow
people
they
together.
found out about us, which is
Right.
great.
Yeah. And then we became part of a nonprofit under the Austin Creative Alliance.
Oh, that's right. Zach was telling me about that.
Yeah, getting that and just getting the help
So,
through them.
so you are officially your own 501c3, correct? Or do you work under the umbrella of their 501c3?
Yeah, the second one.
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay. And how does that work? How do you position yourself in that regard? Like, what are the parameters?
Basically, they
for
just
that?
help out with all of the paperwork and the
Okay.
legal stuff.
Yeah.
And if people donate, they donate technically to Creative Alliance.
Okay.
And then it gets distributed through them to us.
Okay.
Minus a 10% fee.
Okay.
And so it just
That's
makes
a
it
win.
easy for us. 'cause,
Yeah. Painless.
Yeah, 501c3 is probably too much administrative
There's
work.
a lot to jump through.
for the two
a lot
of us.
hoops. Yeah.
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 At this juncture, maybe it will make
Exactly.
Yeah,
sense
maybe
down
in
the
the future.
road.
Yeah,
Kind
they
of
have-
what they say it is. It's like 501c3 training wheels.
I gotcha.
Which works out.
Which is what you're at now.
Yeah.
Gotcha. When's your next release party?
November.
We're planning November 5th, possibly. That
Okay.
first weekend of November, probably after Halloween.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because the there's a music it's Chris Portofka's music app that he just came out with, and he's doing this whole live music thing. It's called Music Firsthand. I don't know if you've heard of that yet, but you should know about that. And he's doing some kind of event launch, whatever, and he wanted to do it here at North Austin Sanctuary, and he's got the band picked out and everything. And we agreed to facilitate it, to host the event. So it might be interesting to, if there's a way to coordinate those two things, it might be really good.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're having like 700 people, it might be a bit much for the space.
So many
but
people. We could do like an after party. Or I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. It's like only the
Pre-party.
super cool people can come to the
VIP.
That's
Invite
right.
700 people into your neighborhood.
Yeah.
Good luck with parking.
Yeah.
Just keep streaming down the street and around the corner and onto the next block.
We do meetups every month, though. So,
So you are doing meetups?
Yes.
And what's the venue for that?
It's a new place every single time. It's basically just to get people involved and have people see the latest issue of the magazine and meet us and meet other people and get feedback on their work sometimes, or music or whatever they're working on.
Who do you find is most often in attendance to these?
We really get a range of people, honestly.
Different people every time.
Yeah.
Because
like-
designers, musicians,
Yeah.
like that produce music.
Yeah.
And we always get people that we've never met, which is cool. You know, we'll get some of our friends, but then someone who just found it and is kind of trying it out and kind of nervous, you know, but it's cool. And then we get to meet them and introduce them to other people too. It's good for artists, and we do have people email us like, hey, I'm an artist, but I'm new to Austin. You know, can you connect me with anyone in your network?
Yeah.
Which luckily we can now that we've built
You've built a pretty
some
good
sort of network. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think? Who do you think is doing? Who else would you say is doing good in terms of publishing, magazines wise, in Austin? Who are, doing things that you think are important, like help represent the scene, like supportive, these kinds of things. Like who else do you think is doing a good job?
Publishing is a very broad word.
Yeah.
So-
Well, in terms of actually creating a rag that you can
Physical.
pick up at physically pick up someplace.
Free Rent is another magazine. We've met them, and they put on events. They do a lot of events at Empire, and they're all inclusive, and they push a lot for women contributors.
Okay, great.
Like diverse backgrounds too.
Yeah, there's a pretty cool zine scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, seems like it. Zine.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's the East Austin magazine, which I believe is free too, and that
Yeah,
one's
it's
more
free.
professional, but there's really good interviews in there, and those you can pick up all over East Austin. That's still good. Just like they have a big team, so it's
Yeah.
like it's like a real magazine. But I do believe they're free as well.
And now, how do you deal with the whole advertising component, and how do you? Your numbers are not that high. Let's be honest.
Nope.
Not yet, but the content is quality, like it's above average. So how do you? But that's that's coming. I mean, that's obviously subjective.
We're above average.
You're above
Yay.
average. Well, I mean, in terms, you know what I'm saying. In terms of like who it appeals to and how it like represents the creative arts, but like. If you're talking about mainstream appeal, like the creative arts fall in this tiny little sliver of who gives a fuck.
Yeah.
And so how do you deal with that? As a publisher who's trying to build this magazine and build this scene, like how do you convince? Let's say, I mean, and
it
the
is
thing
convincing.
I mean, and you're in a scene, to be honest, that is probably way easier than a lot of scenes. I mean, there are a lot of cities that you could exist in that you may not even be able to do what you're doing now.
Oh,
Do you
definitely.
think that's true? Would you agree?
Of course.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, where are you guys from originally?
Southern California. So
Okay.
everybody we knew after college, goes to LA or goes to San Francisco.
Right.
But there's so many people there.
Yeah.
So many
Yeah.
people doing their thing.
Over
I
the
don't
top.
think our
Yeah.
magazine would work
No.
there. Not yet. I mean,
Right.
if we got famous doing this in
Sure.
the next few months.
Yeah, in the next few months.
Yeah, maybe we could do it. But starting out, it would be way harder
So
if we were there.
So what's your approach here? How do you get people turned on enough to start putting dollars in?
Well, I think it's been like once they see the quality of the product and then they meet us and we can talk to them. It's a lot of small businesses or like self-starters that we're talking with, and it's businesses that we like or that we believe in personally. Yeah, exactly. So those people themselves are really easy to talk to. It's different than if we were going into corporate offices and trying to sell them.
You talk to Samsung.
And everybody needs their own specific thing, like whether they have an event coming up or whether they're launching a product. And since it is just us two and a team of other people who just like to volunteer, we can offer that stuff. Like we can help them personally. Craft something more personal. Yeah, it's not like you email Tribiza or the Chronicle and like, here's my content. Yeah. And then you get an automated response and you get sent whatever PayPal link. Right. And that's it. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I think
that is the appeal.
Yeah, once they see it, they always, like, people respond really well. You know, like, oh, wow, this is so well made. And, it's small and I can... so
yeah. Are you going to stay with that format? So, just to be clear, if you haven't seen it, listeners, the size is... What's the dimensions?
4.5 by 6.
Okay, so 4.5 by 6. Pocket size.
Back pocket.
And do you plan on... Because I've seen magazines actually start that way and then... grow up, quote unquote, and become like a big ass magazine, like a normal size. Do you have ambitions to go that way, or do you like the idea of keep this thing like super pocket size, super carryable? And
I think that's our calling card. It's like we're not trying to take ourselves too seriously to the point where we need to fill up 80 full size pages. Yeah, I want it to be more of a like here's a little
taste
gist of what's going on. Yeah, keep it relevant, and it's not. Like, I don't even know. I don't know what people do with the large size magazines.
Yeah, we only keep them for so long.
You thumb through it maybe once, and then it's usually too much content for you to digest all at once, unless there's a picture that catches your eye or something. I don't know.
Well, this is the weird thing about publishing, and I saw this when I was back in Arizona. Like, there was this magazine called 944, and its whole gimmick, I mean, and I remember seeing the initial, basically the sales pitch. This is the piece that they created to try and get advertisers. And, it was very heavy in the Scottsdale scene and blah, blah, blah. And pitching, Scottsdale BMW and Scottsdale Land Rover, like money.
Yeah.
And they're pitching nothing. I mean, this glossy thing that was pretty, but the ink was like falling off on your hands. And there was no content. But it was I don't know, man. It was a marvel because I watched it evolve, and it became this real magazine. But it was like most of it was bullshit, and in most of it, and there was no value. It was like the advertisements were actually probably the prettiest thing in the magazine, and then it was just like going around clubs and taking pictures of the beautiful people hanging out at clubs, and like that became a model. It became a model that a bunch of other magazines started to follow. It's like, well, we just have this section, and it's a huge section of people partying at all these really upscale events. We send a photographer there, and people want to get the magazine, and it's a free publication, same thing. People want to get the magazine, they'll grab it because they think they're going to find themselves. So the model was basically, hey, look at myself. Like it's just basically like narcissism.
Good. Yeah, it's a good way to appeal to people.
The business model was narcissism, playing to narcissism. So it was, but in a very short period of time, it went from that to, I mean, still vapid content, but layers of vapid content, like a thick tome of vapid content, and really well produced and really well executed, and nice paper and nice ink and the whole business. But I just was like, fucking, how do they do that? Like that literally happened in the span of a year, and they were making killing doing it. So it's like when you have, and I was just listening to a really interesting podcast about the market and like whether you're incentivized to have some sort of moral hierarchy or not, like, in your decision making, and like the people who are like totally amoral can't quite make it happen. But in capitalist system, if you're more amoral, you actually have a benefit in the overall system than if you're highly moral. Yeah. Which obviously the morals are relevant to the culture and the time and all that. But it's interesting when you're doing something like this, which is clearly out of love. for the arts and for the artist, to struggle as one does to continue to make these things happen and to push through all the challenges that you have to push through. How do you sustain your own creative juice? I mean, that's
watch a bunch of documentaries about people who are very I don't know, their character is a sociopath.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then just try to do what they
Just
did, but
emulate
without
that?
like crushing people. I don't know. No.
Crushing people.
Yeah, because that's
Is
that's
that
the
possible?
whole that's the whole thing. I haven't watched it, but there's that one McDonald's documentary. Have you seen it?
I just saw.
No, I know the story though. This guy comes in and just destroys everybody's life and takes everything for himself.
Ray Kroc.
Yeah.
And all
Yeah.
that.
So it's like, I don't know. You see all these people and they do have massive success, but it's just such a sad story.
Yeah. At what cost?
Yeah. I mean, I don't care about making myself rich that much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, the
it's
benefit it would be, or
Natalie does.
No,
Natalie's definitely.
If you
she's the
knew
one
me, you would say no way.
Do you feel like there is a way in where you can actually make this thing both at some point like economically not just sustainable but
Making money.
abundant,
Yeah.
and stick to your ethics? Do you
Yeah.
feel like that's a possibility with this kind of publication?
I do think so. It's definitely hard, and we've talked about it, like, oh, will you sell out for the, kind of thing, but I think that because we have such a span of categories too, because we are in like the tech, we have a little tech section from time to time, and startups and stuff like that, and then music and artists, so it's like art.
At least those people have money.
Yeah, creativity in all its forms,
Right.
honestly, so we can appeal to a bigger audience, and in that way, and I think also, like I said, we've built this network, so we can be more than just the magazine.
Yeah.
People have come to us to, get design work, because we both do freelance work.
Right.
And then we also know a lot of people who do either designing or they do recording or producing, such a range. So we thought, we could even be facilitating jobs for other artists that way.
Yeah.
Cause
almost
the
like an
magazine-
agency.
Yeah,
in some
because the
level.
magazine was about giving people a platform to share stuff
Totally.
and be promoted for free and hopefully make money somehow. And people have told us, oh, I got, someone bought something on Etsy because they saw it in the magazine. They told me that. So it's like, if we could do
got
that.
shows in town because,
if
if
we
we
could-
people at the galleries had seen their work in the magazine.
Right.
Which is great.
Wow.
So if we could do that on a larger scale, and that in turn would, I'm sure, bring us some profit, maybe.
Maybe. I think it's about like how. I mean, I think you're right. I support that idea, and I think the piece is like I always think about how to cross promote things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the podcast is a great way to cross promote things. So it's like I make a podcast, I interview you guys, you take that interview, and you share it with all of your people, and suddenly all those people become my people.
Right.
And every person who comes in. So it's the same way with a magazine. It's like you give a platform to people. I mean, essentially creating platforms, it's a long game, but I think that it does ultimately have a successful outcome if you play it right. Not that that's the agenda, but it works in your favor if you do. It's like you might as well also benefit from it and not be a sort of artist martyr kind of dynamic. Because that's just not a sustainable life path in general.
Yeah, we also as artists.
Yeah.
To get it. Well, I think, like I said, it's more than, started as a publication, and now it's more like becoming its own brand, because with the events, and then we also participate and sell products, under Almost Real Things.
What's your product line?
We started with shirts.
It's great.
Because we had done an interview for the very first issue that was with a woman that we made up.
Tessa Renee.
Yeah, her name is Tessa Renee.
Awesome.
But it was really just Zach interviewing himself.
In drag.
Essentially.
I didn't actually dress up, but I should have.
You should have. I think it would have been important. I mean, you could have done a photo and
we
just
did a
used
photo,
stock
but it wasn't
image.
Zach.
Okay, yeah.
But it was really well crafted, and again, Zach was doing the design, and so we had a lot of people being like, "Who is this lady?"
Who is this amazing woman?
She's just the most atrocious person.
Yeah, she's
horrific.
awful.
Yeah.
But she makes these ridiculous shirts, but then people wanted the shirts. So we were like, oh, we should just really make those into
That's
a
great.
thing.
That's great.
So a lot of the
I
products
love
have
that.
kind of come from that. Like, they were fake ideas
Yeah.
that we had in the magazine, and then we're like, oh, I guess we
It's
could
almost
make
like
this.
performance art
Yeah.
in a way.
Yeah.
Like, I think about that kind of stuff all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Still trying to make a mixtape.
from this character.
Yeah, no. We have another fake ad.
Oh, nice.
It's So Records.
Oh, yeah.
This is all of the most mediocre songs that you can think of.
It's
Yeah.
like if you have a night planned with mac and cheese and some
What do you want to listen
This
to?
is what you listen
some
to.
Yeah.
Miller Lite. This is your mixtape.
Yeah.
You know,
You don't really care about the music.
when you've finally given up, this is your mixtape.
It's like when you wake up but you lay in bed for 2 hours before actually getting out of bed. Like,
Yeah.
this is the stuff
this
you
is
should
the,
listen
this
to.
is the soundtrack of that
Yeah,
experience.
just
Yeah.
like swiping through Facebook or something.
We had Rude Boy Rum, which again was a fake thing.
I love it.
But we made bottles for it and labels and whatever, and we couldn't sell rum. You know, we don't have a liquor license.
Yeah.
But, you know, so we just filled
But we
it with
served
other
it
liquid.
to people at the party.
Well, we put, like, other
Oh,
rum.
actual rum
Right,
in
yeah.
there.
But then when we were selling it as a product, which is essentially the bottle, people kept thinking, oh my god, this is rum? Because they're like, it's so cheap kind of thing. And we're like,
That's so great. I love that
It's
kind
fun,
of
though.
stuff.
It's fun because we don't really tell a lot of people, like, if it's fake or not. 'Cause
Yeah.
It, you know, it doesn't matter. So they'll always get those questions a lot. And we'll just, I don't know.
Yeah. We're going to have a conversation off air because I have a lot of those kind of ideas that Chris has been bugging me. She's like, God, you have got to do that. It's so ridiculous.
Those
People
are the almost real things.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
you know,
almost
where the
real
name
things.
is from.
I
Yeah.
love it. So, tell me true. Almost Real Things, was that the thing before, or did you do that intentionally because Almost Real Things is A.R.T?
Both.
Okay.
I mean, we went through a bunch of names. We have a ton of almost real things, almost real
Yeah.
names.
Almost Real Names.
Do you mean the idea of doing, like,
But-
fake?
No.
Oh,
Like,
just
I
the
just
name.
realized
Oh,
that
that is
Almost
art?
Real Things is A.R.T.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I did not get that at all until I
yeah.
was just emailing and abbreviating, and I was like, oh. Because I was calling our place
Yeah.
NAS, you know.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I'm going to hit Zach up, and hey, you know, we can talk about A.R.T. And I was like, wait, what?
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of...
This is so
just-
meta right now.
Yeah, it worked out. And we did kind of, like, plan once we were coming up with names and trying to think of, projects unfinished and almost real, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
But then, we did intentionally
Yeah.
do it eventually. It's funny because I email people, too. We'll be like, art event, but I'll, like, try to capitalize it so they know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and even the fact that you're creating events, these launch events and that kind of stuff with that kind of volume of people. I mean, now these events I'm assuming are free,
yes.
right?
We're always
So I mean,
free.
these things like develop a certain reputation, yeah, but like there's an energy about them, a momentum that starts to develop where you can, because I've seen people do this in other areas like networking kinds of things. They
Right.
start off like very much entrepreneur business networking things that are all kind of free or very low price point to get in, but they build a certain momentum where it's like now everybody wants to be in,
Yeah.
and now you can charge, you know, to make that, you know, accessible or whatever, and that's like a super capitalist thing, but the other thing is like
Bait and switch.
yeah, right. But the other thing is like when you create a product line, and you guys are both, like you said, both artists. You've got this audience that's coming to these events. It's like, I mean, are you selling T-shirts and stuff like that at these events? You are doing that. Okay.
Yeah, we always have our own. Well, the events are for people in that particular issue to sell stuff.
Oh, okay.
the
So there you
artists
go. So it's
that-
almost like a market. You're
Exactly.
creating a
It's,
marketplace.
we always have an art market. So the people that were in the issue featured, now they get to sell their work. And the people, like if you're a reader, you can actually meet and talk to those people.
Yeah.
Musicians that were in it get to play. Or
That's
you know,
great.
so it's just like making the issue real almost. Like,
It's, yeah,
and then
almost real.
Yeah,
And then
exactly.
it becomes
then,
actually real.
yeah.
Actually real things.
Yeah. And then we have our own table every time too, and we do other events. But yeah, we get to sell our stuff.
And how has it been received?
It's been well received, and we started last year with mainly the East Austin studio tours.
Yeah.
You familiar? Yeah, those are huge.
Yeah, totally.
Doing that again next
Which we're
this
doing
year.
again, in November, and we'll be at Canopy, which is where we were. and that's just like a crazy experience. And we still, even like just starting off and not having a ton of products or not having really fine artwork to sell so much, you know, we still got really good reception and made, you know, a decent amount of money from that. So
That's great.
now we're just kind of fine tuning, like what other kinds of things can we sell that we want to be a part of this.
Yeah. What other kinds of things would you like to create?
We're trying to just think of more, I don't know, high end's not the right word, but like
More fine art.
yeah, more
Okay.
not well, fine art in a sense, but
I mean, you haven't made a lot of fine art like that you've shown.
personally,
Yeah, to a
well,
lot
yeah,
of people.
I make like weird conceptual stuff.
And installation,
And
like really cool
yeah.
installation work.
Nice.
So
But if we could figure out how to sell that kind of stuff, that would be an awesome addition. Because right now,
Yeah.
a lot of what
it's
we
like
have
product
is
stuff.
small, like $5 to $25 items.
Yeah.
Okay.
But something
Very
On the-
accessible
yeah.
price points
Yeah,
is
it's
what
more
you're
like
dealing with.
stickers and notebooks and shirts and prints, you know, so all stuff we will still keep. But in East in particular, like, it's the time to show, like, your real art.
yeah,
Yeah.
Type
your
things.
own work.
Yeah.
And Zach, you know, will design things, and yeah, I'll-
Yeah.
If
Mine's,
I could
my
make
stuff's all
bigger
prints, so
Right,
mine's
right.
all like the lower end of the spectrum
Yeah.
deal.
could be
But
higher.
It's
Yeah.
easily. It's art for the people.
it's
Let's just call it
Exactly,
that.
like
I mean, it's
the
mass.
gallery.
It's mass producible. I mean, if I get,
Yeah.
I guess if I'd want more in the like silk screening. Or,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we
the
thought
screen
about maybe
printing
separating
version.
it, having, you know, we'll have another spot on the east side that's not Canopy that we would sell the products at, and then maybe in Canopy do more of a higher end type, like, art that's coming from us, and maybe one or
Yeah.
two key contributors where
Right.
we can also sell their stuff as well.
Would you ever consider then, like, actually having a brick and mortar gallery type scenario where, you know, you actually had the space where you facilitated the parties, the events, a gallery where you're basically taking a cut of other people's fine art sales, just like a gallery would. I mean, you could have better, you know, percentages because
Yeah.
you know, as you know, galleries take whatever 50% or something, kind of obnoxious,
yeah,
generally
it's
speaking.
crazy.
But you know, you could have something more equitable in terms of supporting the artist, but then you could really have the venue, you know, and kind of have your own product line, have a store where people could come see that. I mean, I think there's pluses and minuses to that, obviously, but is that hold any interest to you?
That'd be
or-
great.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Like,
You,
just
so
to
you
have
would
Cool
do that?
space.
Yeah, I don't know. We'd have to talk about like gallery wise, definitely as a venue space, as a workspace,
Yeah.
an office,
Even a co-work
Yeah,
space, so then
exactly.
it becomes self-sustaining in that
Yeah.
regard economically.
because we sell other people's work. You know, whenever we have a show or we table, we ask a few artists, "Hey, do you want us to sell a few of your things for you?"
Yeah.
And we never take a cut. But yeah, I don't know. So
Do you think? Do you have? What's your feeling about? Well, you know, I have, as you saw the video work that I had done with a fine artist in town here. You know, what's your feeling about that alignment? Like, you're sort of guilty or praised by association in terms of, like, as an artist, really so much of that is not about talent. I mean, there's a sort of baseline that has to kind of be met on some level, I guess, and even that's questionable, but it's about your associations, right? So, like, where you associate yourself, like this artist in particular was very clear that he didn't want to associate himself with the East Artist tour group, that contingent, because he felt like it's a lower entry point for people, and there's not a lot of sales, and the sales that are there are, as you have experienced, low price point. You're not selling that $13,000 piece in that
Right.
environment.
probably not.
And so, like, as artists yourself, you know,
it
and I mean,
depends though, because we haven't listed anything for $13,000.
that's true.
So-
we got to test that theory.
I don't know.
Yeah.
The
Seems like a
scientific method.
disconnect.
We need to, like, sort
Yeah.
of experiment with this. But I mean, this you know, and again, times change.
Yeah.
This is a paradigm that was, you know, probably a decade old at this point, you know. And so now that might not be the case at all, but at least then it was like, if you were East Side, you were not getting much, if anything, for
Yeah.
your work. And so for him, he was more inclined to position himself with high-end designers, high-end agents, high-end galleries, just position, and the work clearly fit into that genre as well. So it wasn't like there was nothing phony about that. But there are certainly people as talented who don't go that route, who sort of, and I think what I'm getting at is this sort of psychology of poverty that exists in fucking artists across the board, whether they're musicians, whether they're painters, whether they're photographers, and I think there's almost this innate guilt of like, okay, this thing, and other people play off of that. They're like, hey, can you do this like creative for me? And they don't want to fucking pay you anything. It's like, because you love to do this anyway. Why should I pay you for it? And you're like,
you told me it was fun.
Yeah, it's like
lucky.
I'm getting paid. I'm getting paid well, but I'm doing things that I hate. It's like, well, probably not anyway.
So envious.
So it's just a weird dynamic, and I think it's really important in terms of like, because creatives are the fucking change makers, really, and however that takes form. I mean, like even somebody like Elon Musk to me is a creative because he's like, he has these visions of things and then he's like fucking manifested, and they may be tech oriented things, but he's manifesting these things from a creative space, and I think that to have this mindset of like, oh, well, I enjoy it, I feel guilty about getting money for it, I think is really detrimental across the board, because also it lowers the value of the product in the end. And it's like nothing interesting is even ever made or promoted that hasn't been touched by probably multiple, but at least one creative in the Matrix who's like, whether you're talking about like those really funny, entertaining Geico ads, like those are good because they hired somebody who's fucking good and knows comedy and knows like, they know how to write and they know how to sort of these touch points, and then you've got, a dozen other people who are in the same industry who clearly are not doing that and are not near. Now, does it sell more insurance? I don't know. I can't. I mean, I'm sure there must be a value because they keep doing it. So it's like, and you'd think other people would click on and go, hey, those guys are doing things sort of out of the box. They're doing, some really creative stuff. Not only, we should hire our own version of that. Like, what does that look like? And really, like, get the sort of energy of the creative mind put in place to help. I mean, this is the thing. Then you become a shill for whatever the fuck. And you got to sort of weigh the benefit of that, or,
There's, I mean...
and as I think that's the thing as an artist,
realistically, there's a lot of that. You don't want to be considered as the person who sold out Geico. I remember watching an interview with the Black Keys, and they said that for their first 2 or 3 albums, their manager was totally against doing anything corporate. Like anything at all, because he said that their fans would just totally like leave them.
Bounce.
Yeah. The second they saw them on an insurance commercial or whatever, whatever. And so then I think El Camino came out after that, and they changed managers, and they sold like 4 of their songs to different people, and they said that was like the best decision they ever made because they made so much money and no one gave a shit.
Yeah, Moby's whole like, that record that we all know of Moby was exactly, like his strategy was specifically that marketing towards commercials.
It's perfect.
And
I don't think anybody cares. It's like, if you were putting money into a creative's pocket, do it. Like, benefit yourself and then help other people do the same.
Well, it's like Iggy Pop said, they used that song Wild Child or whatever, So they used that song and they were like, well, but they used it 20 years after the fact. And, but of course he allowed it. I mean, it was his, I think, allowed it. I mean, once it's out in the public, essentially, if you pay the publishing rights, then you can, then you as long as you're willing to pay for it, you can use it basically. And an artist really doesn't have much say about it. I mean, they can ask you not to use it, like Rick. I mean, like the boss, saying, "Hey, don't use "Born in the USA" to support Reagan or whatever."
Just
but
a bad
at the
song
end,
in general.
Right. But it's like, it's like. They asked him about that, and he was like, that wasn't, I didn't write it for that. It ends up being used for that,
Yeah.
like after the fact, and I'm not going to say no to the paycheck that it gives me, you know, but like it's about, I think what it points to is motive,
Yeah,
basically.
I was
Are
gonna say
you writing
intention.
and manipulating your stuff and like not being true to your artistic voice and your creative voice as a means to just collect a paycheck?
Yeah.
And hey, man, you know what? No judgment. Some people, you know, you got to do that sometimes, I guess. I mean, I'm sure. But at the end of the day, like, the most of your work, if you're an artist, to me, part of the artist's heart is about truth. It's about a seeking for truth and authenticity within whatever's going on inside here, you know, and it's not universal truth, but the truth of this being and being in this vessel that you're inhabiting. And putting that voice out as in an artistic, creative form, and to compromise that, to me, is a detrimental to the craft.
Yeah.
And that's what happens, I think, when, you know, it's like, hey, you know, you wrote this really great song, can you turn that into a jingle?
Yeah.
And it's like, fuck no. Like, you can either pay me for that song and just use it as is, or you can fuck off, basically. You know, because it's like, how many derivations have you heard of that stupid Coldplay song? Because I know, like, I worked in
Every
the marketing and
corporate,
advertising when I was doing video stuff, and I was basically paid to hire a composer to create a song that sounded like a song that they didn't want to pay for.
Oh yeah.
But it was enough variation that you couldn't get sued.
Yeah.
But it was basically that song, you know, and he, you know, he had nothing going on anyway. It wasn't like he was like, you know, compromising something, because he was just doing his thing, and like, you know, in 10 minutes he could knock out this little piece and get $1,000 or whatever. But you know, you can see the sort of like where that can go if you compromise yourself enough. What's left, you know?
Yeah, I think
Depression.
like you said,
Depression, alcoholism.
it's about intention.
Yeah.
Why are you making this? And I do think that artists that make, well, people that call themselves artists that make work that is for money or for, you know, exposure or whatnot, I don't think it's sustainable. I don't think they'll be able to do it forever, because it won't be like a part of them, you know. They won't get anything from it other than that money. So we've always been, I mean, the whole project was for, you know, emerging artists or people that but we do work with people too that sell their work in shops or have gallery shows, and so we're not against anyone, you know, no matter how much they're selling their work for and whatnot. It's more about them as people and what they're making. But we do have we do just want to include people where the people that aren't as familiar with the artistic community, if they come to our events, can purchase art at an affordable price. At least some art, you know, maybe some of it will be in the hundreds, you know, $500, but some of it will be $20. You know, so just so we have that range is important to us.
Do you feel like the democratization of art in the sense of accessibility is an important thing? I mean, it sounds like, just based on your publication, that's kind of your
I mean, because it benefits the people who are just starting out making it, whether or not, like we said at the beginning, like, I'm an idiot, like, I think I just made this, like, I don't even think it's good, and then you show it to somebody and they're like, that's awesome, like, I would pay $40 for that, like, oh, no way, really? Like, we have those people come in, and if somebody buys their print, that's the best day of their life. And that totally, like, changes their trajectory as a person.
Well, that's the guy I was referring to earlier, like that, the dude who charges like mad money for these pieces started that exact way, like basically took a piece in to get framed and went back in to, you know, check on the process, you know, the how, you know, whether it's available or not, and the guy who was framing it was like, you had a bunch of people ask about buying this thing, and he was like, wait, what?
That's awesome.
You know, because it had no, just, it's the same kind of thing. And I just did a podcast with a photographer. It was the same kind of thing. It was like the switch from going, I'm just doing this as my own catharsis, my own process, my own growth, my own expression, to becoming someone, to coming to the place where people want to actually buy your thing,
Yeah.
the thing that you've created, and then like, oh, now the business aspect starts, because now there's this transaction of money going on for a product, and then it's like, oh, well, then could I do this? Could I replicate this? Could I do this multiple times? And then how do I scale this? And, depending on your sort of sense of self, your self-awareness, and what you believe you deserve, or what you're capable of, or what you want in your life, like these are these small, subtle little course corrections that you make or don't make that dictate what your destiny essentially looks like.
Right.
What I think, 5 years from now, project yourself 5 years from now. What in your ideal, what would be your ideal scenario?
Build a giant building in Las Vegas and put our name
Slot
on
machines?
it. Just our last names, yeah.
Okay.
On
good.
the top in
like
gold,
it.
like
Yeah,
gold
oh, yeah,
plate
yeah.
it.
Mm-hmm.
Each of us have our private jet. And
This is all 5 years.
yeah,
Called you out.
we're gonna build because they already have them, like football stadiums.
Yeah.
The kind that they
You
built
just-
for the Olympics.
Yeah, but
then they just
you'd
like
brand
leave
it.
But just
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, so we'll buy one of those. that's
Whose
just-
name goes first?
Me, because
Girl.
he's
Okay.
Ladies
no,
first.
because
Ladies
you're
first.
Z.
Yeah,
Z
and
is our
Oh,
first
that
last.
makes sense.
alphabetically. Yeah.
They have to be
So
last.
they Earhart and Solch Stadium.
It's got a ring.
Yeah.
I like it.
Right.
I feel it.
And we'll get a pastor to go in there. So like every Sunday.
A pastor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can have church service
Televangelist.
over there.
Oh,
yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, maybe like a different
Joel
religion.
Osteen.
Yeah.
Different religion
Start
every
off.
day.
Oh, I like this. I like
That
where
way
you're going with that.
you don't leave anybody out because we're all about inclusivity.
Totally.
And then if anything happens, like we can just close it down.
Yeah. Flood
Like
it.
if there's a
could
flood,
flood it if
we
you want.
close it down so that no one can get in
Well, yeah.
because
in Vegas, I don't think you're gonna have any
Yeah.
concerns about a flood.
no, they have lots of floods in Vegas.
Do they?
Yeah, there's
They
flooding
get a
all
lot
the
of
time.
rain.
Well,
I don't know if they're like actual dangerous floods, but
I was gonna
but
say.
the streets
Probably
flood.
minimal.
Yeah, no, the streets flood
I've seen
because
that.
this is like Arizona, like Phoenix. Like there's the ground is so dry. There's no opportunity for absorption when they get a
Right.
serious rain. When after
I mean,
every
in 5
10 years they
in
get
5
a,
years, we'll have crazy global warming problem,
it's true.
and the ocean will be like 70 degrees
Yeah,
all the way around the world.
all the way around the world.
And so we'll have hurricanes pretty often.
That's true. So
this
Vegas
is-
would probably be a good place to be.
This
actually.
is our 5-year plan. Yeah.
That's a good one.
I don't know if
Natalie
I
probably
wanted
has a
that.
different version of that.
That was my version.
What's Natalie's version?
Branded.
Of that?
Copyright
see.
Zach Solch.
It's
Copyright Zach.
it's hard to know, whether. I mean, I moved to Austin not too long ago, 2 years ago, but I remember moving and being like, I'm only gonna be here for 2 or 3 years, and then it's been 2 years, and it feels like it was so quick.
Blink of an eye.
Yeah. So I do know though, as much as I love Austin, I'll move again just to move and just to experience other things. But I hope that we can, if we can, though, we have a lot of momentum. Have a space would be great, like we were saying, a
Yeah.
workspace, a
Yeah.
collaborative,
Your own brick and mortar.
co-working venue type thing. A bigger team. We have our team now, but like a team that could profit off of it, including ourselves in some way. If this could be our main job, that would be great.
Yeah, us and 10 other people.
Yeah.
That would be
Yeah.
amazing if everybody could get paid a
Yeah.
livable
Yeah.
wage to just promote arts and emerging artists.
Yeah.
And like I said, that facilitator for getting other creatives paid.
Totally.
Like if we could be a recognizable name that people would know to come to us, where we could
Hand out jobs.
hand out
basically.
jobs to quality
Yeah.
artists. Then
Yeah.
that would be ideal too. I also really like the idea of doing workshops.
What would that look like?
I mean, I've always wanted to teach, and that's what I've been doing. Taught various things. But I was talking before with a few people, but just to start out, I thought doing workshops about just practical, creative, in business type skills, which other people do that in town too.
Yeah, definitely.
And partnering up with those people or others. But like you said, the whole like feeling guilty about getting paid to do something that you like to do, like just kind of
Moving
getting
through
people
that,
to talk
yeah.
about that, and then all kind of, talking about it, almost like a communal type thing, and just helping people to realize, like, new people, I have no idea how to price my work. You know, what do? You've been, making art for 10 years and living in Austin. How do you price your work? Just like basically facilitating conversations about very real life things that people don't always talk about, like, how am I supposed to write a proposal, like, and be professional about it? What do I do about these contracts? I've never had to sign a contract before. So stuff like that, I think, would be really cool. Just, I'm very much about, like, get paid for your work. You should be paid for what you do, whether
especially
doesn't matter what
since
it is.
that usually, especially if you're in any kind of design for other businesses, it's like they're profiting off of your work.
Yeah.
It's not like you're just designing some kind of mural or something for a nonprofit who's just struggling also, to just provide something benevolent. I mean, that's a different dynamic.
Yeah, it's
but
definitely
it's
different with each situation. But yeah, I've had enough jobs and I feel like seen enough things where people, so many companies, they take advantage of when you are a good worker or a good person, they will take advantage of that. And so just having people recognize, like, know your worth, know what you are worth so that you can communicate that to other people and not feel bad about it. It's okay that you want to get paid for what you're doing for someone else,
How do you measure that, though, in an environment? And this is something I've had firsthand experience with. When I lived in Australia, it was easy for me to make like $70 an hour doing production work because I was one of two people on the Sunshine Coast who did what I did, and I was the most reliable because the other one was old and high all the time and was working with antiquated gear and antiquated mindset. So I was able to cash in on that in a way that I can't do here, primarily because there's just a wash of people really who have the same skill set, who can more or less do some derivation of what I do. Maybe they are missing in some areas or more competent in other areas, but at the end of the day, like, the client can more or less get what they need to be, get what they need from somebody who's willing to do it for $12 an hour or $15 an hour. So, like, Austin is a very competitive, especially in the creative arts. Musicians don't get paid that well. Artists don't seem to get paid that well. Filmmakers, videographers, editors don't get paid that well. So what's your sort of observation around that?
Well, I do think it's in twofold because, like you said, there's people that will do that job for less. Yeah. And I think that's why opening up that conversation is important because if you charge less just so you can get the job done, you're actually undercutting other artists and you're making it harder for other people to get paid what they're worth and also for yourself. Yeah. So I think opening up that conversation and, you'll probably, just more about educating and...
I mean, this is the point of unions, basically.
Yeah. But yeah, because, I'm sure there'll always be those people that are undersell you, but if you can kind of get on a level, like, you will get this quality of, like, make people hopefully think more about the quality, because it's in the design community, too. You can get somebody to make you a shitty website for, like 10% of the cost, but it's not even worth it.
Some derivation of Fiverr will always exist. Yeah. You can always go there and get some bullshit. Yeah. It will be great. It's the bullshit store. Yeah. And if you want that, it's like if you're okay with that, then go do it. Version of it. Yeah. But if you actually want something of value, you will pay a little bit more. And hopefully that person who provides you the content will know their worth and be happy with the transaction.
It's also perception. I mean, so much of this stuff, and this is what I learned from another entrepreneur sort of mentor of mine, was that you have to educate your clients as to what value actually means. And basically his theory, and I think it's overtly true, is that humans have a hard time really distinguishing what's valuable. because the things that they need most for survival, they're more than happy to fuck up every day, which is their air and their water and their food supply. So clearly humans don't actually understand what value means. So your job becomes, as a marketer, and maybe it's a marketer / producer of the thing, is to really create a compelling enough argument to say the reason why you're going to pay more for this, and the reason why that's going to be worth it to you is X, Y, and Z. You know, and so much of what I see, especially in Austin, because it is a cliquish. It can be a very cliquish kind of city. It has its way about it that way, and because I see it even in the music scene, it's like, you know, it's almost like, oh, there's the South Siders and there's the East Siders, and you know, it's like there are certain bands who would never play this venue or never play that venue because, well, you know, there's the genre factor, but there's almost like, you know, it's just turf war. It's just weird, you know. So I think that there's that aspect to it, but it's like it's also about relationships. Ultimately, it's like. If somebody knows you and trusts you and has a dynamic with you, even though I'm sure somewhere along the way they realize, like, oh, I could pay less to this person who hit me up, because I'm sure they're getting hit up all the time by people who want work, right? It's like, are they going to risk, you know, paying a little less to somebody who's unproven? Or are they going to continue to pay the person who they're in relationship with? And there's a line there, because I have had friends who are in the graphic design or the motion graphic design field who have had those relationships where they've had them for a long time and nurtured those relationships. But over time, you know, the client asked for certain things. They weren't willing to provide those things or provide them for less. And eventually the client cut them loose, because they were like, well, we can bring someone in-house who's younger and willing to work for less, and you know what I mean, and they lost a basically a bread and butter gig because they weren't really seeing the writing on the wall, which is like, this client is getting edgy and they're wanting some accommodation here, and you're not giving them any, because you're like, this is my rate, this is how I do things, da 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 da, and they're going, well, there's all these fucking college kids coming out who can do what you do, maybe not as well or whatever, but we'll bring them in house and we'll tell them how to do it and manage the whole thing, you know, and we'll control it, you know. We won't, and we'll pay.
I mean, maybe that's better for the business.
It is better. Well, this is the thing. It's at the end of the day, it's like, you know, you're talking about like the value or whatever, but the business is the one determining that. Like, they don't.
They're the one with the money.
Totally, so. and even if they think like the thing that they're making is visually subpar. You know, like you and I may say, you know, it's not as good as I would have done. You know, whatever. It's like, well, if it helps sell whatever crap they're selling, maybe they just don't care. You know what I mean? Like, maybe they're willing to do that. So it's just a weird line to sort of walk, which I think, coming back around, the more entrepreneurial you are about your own work and your own creativity and your own brand building, and I mean, essentially it comes down to control of an audience, not control, but influence. Like, what is the influence that you have over a population? And if you have influence of people who like what you do and are inspired by what you do, and then you create something for them, they're more than happy to take it, you know, to buy it, to support you in that.
Right.
And it feels like, you know, that's kind
comes
of
back to those relationships again.
Yeah.
And I think the main goal with us in the magazine is to let people who do a thing do that thing
and give them a platform
and make money from it, and have that be what supports you in life, and show them that can be, you know, a money maker. Like, you don't have to go and be a barista for 10 years struggling to live. Like, you can do what you want to do and figure out a way to make it profitable for yourself. And, you know, there's tons of different paths to go down, but that's what I think 5 years from now. Hopefully, the closer we can get to that, the better off we are.
Yeah. And do you feel, now she was saying she would probably want to move again. Do you feel like you have an interest in exploring some other cities or other places, like where other places hold some kind of charge for you?
I don't know. You're just talking about that in the car on the way over.
Yeah.
I have no idea, because the same scenario. Like, I didn't know how long I would be in Austin, and it still feels very fresh.
Yeah. You've only been here 2 years?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's just
almost
your toes in the water.
Coming up on 3.
Yeah.
But yeah, same scenario. I don't know. Austin's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
So
you're digging it.
Riot it out.
You stick it out for a while.
Yeah.
Good. I think the whole.
But I would love to live, you know, other places too.
Maybe Prague.
I'd live in Vienna.
Barcelona.
Haven't been.
Live in Japan.
Have you?
No,
No,
It
Not
would
yet.
live.
but you would.
but I would.
That would be an interesting transition. I think it's very different from Austin, from what I
Yeah.
understand. I've never been, but
Slightly.
I'm going to gauge that.
Oh,
I'm just
man.
going to go ahead and
It's-
call that.
It's an amazing place.
so.
I mean, because
Yeah,
I
it's
have
there.
not seen one vending machine that sells used panties here. Not one. And I think
That's-
there's a market for
That's
it.
what I feel like I'm missing.
Well, exactly.
in
That's the
Austin.
thing. You got to sort of like, okay, there are positives to Austin, but certainly, like, if I can't go to a vending machine and just get some ramen or some
Yeah.
used panties, like, it's
It's
kind
a
of
deal breaker.
It's kind of a deal breaker. Like, I don't know if I can live here forever. Is
Yeah.
all I'm saying.
True, Dad.
Hey, you guys have been awesome. Thanks for coming in.
Thank
It was
you.
really fun to talk to you guys and hear
Yeah.
about this, and I can't wait to see what kind of continues to unfold with your magazine and
Thanks,
with your
man.
own personal artwork and all the cool things that you're working on.
Thanks so much. We can't wait to see what happens with this place too.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
We'll be following
It's
along.
Well, that was my interview with Zach Zulch and Natalie Earhart from Almost Real Things magazine here in Austin, Texas. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got something useful out of it, or were at least entertained by it. If you like the music, the funky song you're listening to now is by an artist named Gunnar Nelson. And the intro music right before the interview was a song called Gray off an old album of mine called A New Religion. If you want to check out more of my music, you can check it out at shamanjohnmusic.com. That's SHAMANJON music.com. If you want to learn more about our guests, find out who's coming up next, and learn more about how you can help support this podcast if you're enjoying it, you can go to thewisdomdistillery.net, and there'll be a link there for our Patreon page, as well as more information on our upcoming guests, as well as links and references to the different material we cover here on the Wisdom Distillery. Thanks again for listening. Keep your eyes on the prize, and don't forget, you're one sexy mofo. I'm out!